With me now is European Parliament member Anders Vistisen. Thank you so much for being here. You just heard the new information coming out of Greenland and Denmark that they are going to have a bigger military presence there. The President of the United States says NATO will become far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Is that acceptable to you? And what do you make of this new move by Greenland and Denmark?
It's frankly quite hard to see how the president can be so misguided and frankly not very informed about the situation. Greenland already is a member of NATO, and USA have gone from having 15,000 troops stationed there to only 150 at the moment. That's a US unilateral decision not to be there. So if it was important for the security of the US, why have they withdrawn? The fact of the matter is that the president is very offensive towards the Kingdom of Denmark and towards his European allies and the kingdom. And that is a big problem. And that fundamentally challenges the status of NATO and our defensive alliance.
Trump also said that if there is a deal that has been unable to be made the easy way, as he put it, then he will have to do it the hard way when it comes to getting Greenland. What do you think that means, and what are your concerns about it?
I don't think he really wants to use military force, but I think that it is a clear mistake by the Danish and Greenlandic government to go to Washington, do a meeting when they are threatened with this threat of military invasion. I think, quite frankly, that they should stay away until the time where the US administration makes it clear that there will be no military intervention. And I think Denmark should consider to go even further and close down the US consulate in Nuuk and think about how the US embassy in Copenhagen can be adjusted accordingly to this threat coming from the US administration.
If Trump does it the hard way, and that means military occupation or action against Greenland, how do you expect Europe to respond to this, being that, as you mentioned, Greenland is part of NATO?
Then you have one NATO member attacking another NATO member, both of them actually founding members of NATO, and doing it off the coast of a third NATO member, Canada. And that will be the end of the defensive alliance, and that will tear a break between the transatlantic relations that have been prospering since the end of the Second World War. That would de facto be the end of the defensive alliance of NATO that won the Cold War. And that would be a very high price to pay for something that the US president frankly cannot reasoning why he needs Greenland. He talks about the military purpose. They already have a military treaty to be present in Greenland. They talk about mining. There is an open business for mining if anyone can make a business case up there, but no US company have been able to do that. And there are no vessels from China and Russia going up and down the coastline of Greenland. So basically it would be tearing up NATO for nothing.
Which is significant if that is exactly what happens. I am curious what you think of what you're hearing from the NATO chief. NATO Chief Mark Rutte says that all allies agree on the importance of the Arctic and Arctic security because we know that with sea lanes opening up, there is a risk that the Russians and the Chinese will be more active. He is not making a strong statement against U.S. action and some of the things that the president has said and demanded. What do you think of that?
I think he's a quite weak leader of NATO, and he is apparently in the pocket of the US administration more than leading an alliance of free countries. He also called the president daddy, I think, at some point. And I actually think for a man who has been prime minister of the Netherlands for many, many years, I think he's making a fool of himself. And I think he frankly looked quite ridiculous as the head of an organization that should be a federation, defensive federation of free states from the US to the European allies in Canada.
Sounds like you think diplomacy might be dead here. Anders Vistisen, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I know that there are a lot of people watching the region right now to see what happens next, especially in this diplomatic meeting ahead today. Appreciate your time.